Welcome back to Otaku Daikun. It's been a long time since I last covered the lore of Fate Grand Order. Granted, it's been a while since the game dropped any substantial core content, enough to fill an entire video anyway. Thankfully, you've got tons to dive into with Ordeal Call II and its surrounding circumstances. As a humble reminder, I'm not just here to summarize what happens. I unveil the narrative from the outside in, conveying all the relevant circumstances at play. This means spoilers, but if you're down for that, let's get to it. I've got to admit, the whole premise behind these ordeal calls is bizarre. Novum Chaldea, our crew on the Storm Border, has recently discovered that the alien god responsible for bleaching Earth is not, in fact, you Olga Marie. God isn't even the best word for it, as our true nemesis is the alien world of Chaldeus. That's right, Chaldeus, that device meant to predict the Earth's future, is actually a functioning planet of its own. When Anastasia froze the damn thing way back during the Lost Belt prologue, she was actually protecting it as it enacted the whole Lost Belt conflict. Marisbury, the guy who founded the Chaldea Security Organization, was the one setting this all in motion. We need to figure out what the hell he was trying to accomplish, and to do that, we need to get back to our old base in Antarctica. Problem is, there's this impenetrable barrier keeping us out. A mysterious force called the Human Order is rejecting our advance. It happens to be the very same force that dictates which parallel worlds are allowed to persist and which are cold like the Lost Belts. It all has to do with the trajectory of a world's history and what that implies for all of Earth's living creatures. The Lost Belts were all set to be pruned because life on them became stagnant. You might consider it an extension of Gaia, the Earth's will. Within that will is Alaya, a consciousness designated to protecting humanity in particular. Heroic spirits, by extension, are Alaya's method of protecting the human order. Even though Chaldea has been fighting on behalf of the human order, or trying to anyway, we've taken this servant summoning system into our own hands. Presumably, this is how all these extra classes emerged that weren't supposed to exist. Let's just say the human order isn't a fan of that, and refuses to let us proceed until we can confront our overuse of these extra classes. The ordeal calls, then, are some last-minute singularities forcing us to confront and resolve the underlying issues with each class. Ordeal Call 1 was all about understanding the nature of alter egos. Doing so improved our Foundation of Humanity score, bringing us one step closer to reaching Chaldea's base. Unfortunately, we don't really have a way of escalating these singularities. All we can do is wait around until trouble comes our way. Sometimes that trouble isn't a new singularity, but rather a residual mess from the Lost Belts. Recall how the alien god, or alien world, summoned a handful of servants to act as its apostles? We've dealt with most of them by now, but there are still some remaining. There's Rasputin Kire, who's mostly kept to himself these days, as well as a mysterious figure calling himself the Count. From the shadows, he keeps challenging us with various obstacles, and it's finally time to unveil who he truly is. Ripping off the band-aid, I'll just come out and say that this is the heroic spirit of Alessandro di Cagliostro, an 18th century occultist whose lore overlaps with that of Marie Antoinette. Count Cagliostro, as he was known back then, was a self-proclaimed doctor, alchemist, philanthropist, and expert at spiritual evocation. In truth, though, he was a total fraud who conned his way into Paris high society. People speculated he was some exiled prince who healed wounds. Nope, his real name was Giuseppe Balsamo, and he wasn't even a proper mage. Regardless, he helped popularize occultism in the 19th century, influencing the clock tower to eventually create its department of modern magecraft theory. During his life, Cagliostro met Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart through the Prague Association, but is more famously known for provoking the French Revolution. He was accused of inciting the Diamond Necklace affair. King Louis XV commissioned an absurdly expensive necklace for one of his mistresses. By the time the jewelry was completed, the king had died of smallpox, and his mistress was banished from the court. This left the necklace unpaid for, so the jewelers hoped that Marie Antoinette would buy it from them. Instead, she refused on several occasions, claiming that money would be better spent on her kingdom. Desperate to sell their liability, the jewelers teamed up with criminals to forge Marie's signature, making it seem like she bought the necklace behind the scenes. Even though Marie was later exonerated, it irreparably damaged her reputation. Cagliostro went to trial as a conspirator, and while he was found innocent in court, he was later exiled from Paris and imprisoned in Rome for trying to dismantle European rule. It's commonly believed that the Count died in prison in 1795. However, even though he was a deceptive con man, there was one mystery within magecraft he actually did master: immortality. He was capable of regenerating his body, effectively establishing eternal youth. Of all the spells to acquire, I'd say he hit the jackpot. As a result, he lived through the 1800s, meeting other famous figures like Edmond Dantes, Sherlock Holmes, and Elena Blavatsky. Overall, he was a suspicious man beloved by the masses, but despised by aristocrats who saw him as a threat. Originally, Cagliostro made his debut in the Heian-Kyo Singularity as a participant in the Imperial Holy Grail War. Debut may be giving it too much credit, as he was basically just mentioned in passing. He was supposed to play a larger role in that singularity, but both he and Elena Blavatsky had their parts reduced for length. Thus, it's just a minor detail that he was killed in that war by Watanabe no Tsuna. After being defeated, Ashia Dolmen personally recruited him to serve as another of the alien world's apostles. Unsurprisingly, Cagliostro later introduces himself as the Avenger Cagliostro Alter, but that's another of his many lies. Instead, he's a pretender, a class known for hiding itself as one of the other classes. While we initially thought Olga Marie was the alien god, she wound up being another of the alien world's apostles, the apostle to lead the others. In order to help us defeat Ort, she sacrificed herself. Normally, that would mean she died for good, but apparently there are still remaining fragments of her spirit origin out there. Cagliostro finds it a waste to just let Olga stay dead, so he cultivates these fragments into what he calls elements. These are, essentially, 4 Olga Marie clones reborn just to fight Chaldea, and eventually wither away our fighting spirit. The first of the elements, or Olga Maries, is Flare Marie, a version of her representing the element of fire. During a 10-battle raid, Ritska, Mashu, and our Chaldean servants best Olga's flame and vanquish her. Still only calling himself the Count, Cagliostro applauds our efforts, but reveals there are 3 more elements set to attack us in the future. Fortunately, they don't all arrive at once. Cagliostro enjoys this process of testing our resolve at every turn, and these elements remain a challenge even after he himself gets killed. Another of Cagliostro's trials takes the form of a singularity, the Waxing Moon Ritual that serves as FGO's collaboration with Fate Samurai Remnant. I already made a lore video on Samurai Remnant proper, and this event was a spin-off of that. Generally, the Waxing Moon Ritual was an imitation Holy Grail War set during Japan's Edo period. The talented priest Abe no Seimei was able to see the future, learning about the modern era's Grail Wars through a vision. He documented his findings, only for a disciple, Tsuchimikado Yasuhiro, to find them and actually reenact the war in his time. For the collaboration event, Cagliostro observes Yasuhiro's ritual, and with the help of participant Ushi Gozen, bastardizes it into a never-ending war without human masters. His Waxing Moon Ritual is similar to Ashia Domen's Heian-Kyo Singularity, leading Chaldea to mock him as a discount caster of Limbo. Fucking Timu, bad guys. Once more, Cagliostro doesn't actually reveal himself to us, instead remaining a disembodied voice. Beyond creating this singularity, he doesn't actually play a role in its proceedings, which is why I'm not giving this event a full video, at least not yet. This brings us to Ordeal Call II, Id the Inescapable Gehenna, where we finally confront Cagliostro directly. Let's start by breaking down that title. What exactly is a Gehenna? Basically, it's a valley in the Hebrew Bible that serves as a kind of hell, where divine punishment takes place. The id, of course, is a psychological concept introduced by Sigmund Freud, which represents a person's basic instinctive impulses. For Fate, both of these are referring to the dark recesses of Ritska's mind. After surviving all these singularities, after ending the 7 Lost Belts, Ritska has amassed quite a bit of despair and regret. Conceptually, there's a place in their mind where these feelings accumulate, a dumping ground of trauma, if you will. Essentially, this Ordeal Call is about Count Cagliostro's attempt to invade that space and exploit it for his own gain. More specifically, it is a trap meant to lure in Cagliostro so he can be defeated once and for all. The one laying this trap is another count, Edmond Dantes, the Count of Monte Cristo. Fittingly, this is our opportunity to deal with all Avenger-class servants. In a way, Dantes is the OG Avenger, his legend embodying the very essence of vengeance, written by Alexandre Dumas, the same guy we see in Fate Strange Fake. Dantes was a humble seafarer in southern France. He planned to marry his beloved Mercedes, only to be arrested on false charges of supporting Napoleon Bonaparte's revolution. Unfairly, he was imprisoned in the fortress of Chateau d'If, but rather than fall into despair, he endured with the help of another prisoner, Abbe Faria. Through his new mentor, Dantes learned of the church, magecraft, and the location of a hidden treasure on Monte Cristo Island. In time, Dantes broke out of prison, found that island, and claimed the treasure for himself. Only after seizing his freedom did he realize Mercedes was stolen from him, his false allegations being made by a romantic rival. Poor Dantes was the victim of a deep conspiracy, and with newfound power and wealth, he set out to take revenge on those who wronged him. His vengeful journey took many interesting turns, one of which pitting him against the dead apostle Michael Roa Valdemiong. With black flames of hatred, Dantes incinerated his vampiric foe, cutting off Roa's cycle of reincarnation. Not even Archewade could pull that off. This all transpires in an Edmond Dantes drama CD. In it, we learn that the treasure of Monte Cristo wasn't just a fuck ton of money. It also contained a relic stolen from the church's 8th sacrament, bestowing users a special magic circuit that lets them burn away sin. Dantes is going around with power from the Age of Gods, burninating everyone who stands in his way. This Ordeal Call introduces us to another of Dantes' foes, King Theodoric Alter. He was a Germanic king of the Ostrogoths around the 5th and 6th centuries. Theodoric was the basis for Dietrich von Bern, a legendary knight from Germanic folklore passed down through oral tradition. In life, he was exiled from his people to serve under Etzel, otherwise known as Attila the Hun. Many of the tales told of Dietrich involve him battling against mythical beings. Since legends can greatly influence heroic spirits, Theodoric's servant form gains benefits from his mythological counterpart. As such, the visage of Theodoric on his steed liken him to a wild huntsman. You hear this term in Fate all the time, the wild hunt. It doesn't describe a single event, but rather a recurring motif throughout various myths. Typically, the wild hunt depicts a great leader charging into battle with an army of ghost warriors, chasing down all manner of monstrous beasts. One of these leaders was the Norse god Odin, which may help explain why this epic chase scene is associated with storms. King Theodoric is often known for his own wild hunt, being one of the more well-known examples. At some point, his legends became intertwined with another legend, that of Le Bête du Gévaudan, or the Beast of Gévaudan. This was a carnivorous animal that went around slaughtering shepherds, farmers, and other innocent victims in the French region. Despite attempts to hunt down this monster, it continued to terrorize people. Rather strangely, the legend of this cryptid merged with Theodoric's, becoming the king's mount. A creature known for being hunted by man became the steed for one of man's most iconic hunters. Apparently, Theodoric and the Beast of Gévaudan were made into a representation of the wild hunt, manifesting to the south of France to terrorize the land for decades. As to why this happened, I honestly can't say. Regardless, Edmond Dantes eventually saw them as an obstacle in his quest to torment his nemesis Fernand Mondego. Ironically, Dantes hunted them down and slayed them. As a result of this confrontation, Theodoric and the Beast wound up recorded as an altar servant with an Avenger Saint Graph. It's definitely the most bizarre anecdote of Dantes' legend, and it exists exclusively within Fate's version of the character. Ultimately, Edmond Dantes completed his path of vengeance, quelling his flames of hatred with the love of his mistress Haydée. She was this absolutely gorgeous Albanian princess sold into slavery by Fernand. After Dantes rescued her, the two fell in love, giving the story a happy ending for the most part. It seems that, according to fate, Dantes was a real-ass dude who met Alexandre Dumas and passed his story on to the author, who popularized it in novel form. Nonetheless, I'm sure Dantes as a heroic spirit overlaps with Dumas' interpretation of him. It's important to note that even though real-life Dantes found salvation from vengeance, his servant form remains a pure embodiment of vengeance. In other words, Servant Dantes is doomed to forever be an edgelord. Needless to say, Edmond Dantes is one of Fate Grand Order's more convoluted servants, and his circumstances are unique. Apparently, he's not the kind of guy to normally respond to a master's summons. He only emerged due to Gaetia's incineration of humanity. We first met an illusion of Dantes back during the Kata no Kyokai event, where he tried to make the Ogawa apartment complex into a version of his prison tower. He then became an invader of Ritsuka's dreams due to a curse put on us by Gaetia. Within a dream singularity, he challenged Ritsuka to venture through the prison tower and overcome its trials. In the end, he was glad Ritsuka prevailed, knowing we could defeat the King of Mages. Ever since, Edmond Dantes has existed within Ritsuka's mind. Regardless of his original intent, Dantes took a liking to Ritsuka and decided to protect us in a way only he could. You see, one of Dantes' most famous anecdotes is how he escaped from Chateau d'If. This escape from an otherwise inescapable prison manifests in an ability to traverse through any barrier, whether it be physical, mental, or temporal. Beyond his various appearances throughout the game, he's been taking care of Ritsuka's mental health, culling the excess despair they accumulate. Said despair appears as tall stone slabs that resemble both the demon god pillars and fantasy trees. For the longest time, Dantes has been able to torch these slabs as they emerge, but lately their numbers have gotten out of hand. Now that Ritsuka has to confront each of the extra classes, Dantes decides this would be the perfect time to teach his master about the true nature of Avengers like himself. He witnesses Ritsuka falling into the same despair that plagued him in life, and while there's a great deal of power and satisfaction to seeking revenge, he ultimately deems it too dangerous for its own good. Thus, he thinks Ritsuka can best understand the Avengers by getting a taste of vengeful wrath and then choosing to overcome that hatred rather than succumb to it. With Cagliostro still at large, Dantes tries to kill two birds with one stone, creating a dream singularity within Ritsuka that will both educate the young master and trap Cagliostro so he can slay his ass. Turns out, this is easier said than done, requiring the energy of not one, but two Edmond Danteses. I'll do my best to explain what is probably the most confusing aspect of this whole ordeal. Technically speaking, there have always been two incarnations of Dantes within Ritsuka's mind. There's the one we met during his prison tower event, and then there's the servant we summoned through Chaldea. For the Ordeal Call, both these Danteses are in agreement about what must be done. Their plan is to recreate the prison tower and provide Ritsuka with 7 more trials to overcome. One Dantes will orchestrate the trials, while the other will guide Ritsuka from the shadows, literally. Just to make things even more confusing, the two forms of Edmond Dantes we actually encounter here aren't simply the prison tower and Chaldea versions respectively. Rather, each of these Danteses contains 2 critical attributes, regret and resolve, sometimes translated as attachment and resolve. For the creation of this singularity, the regret from each Dantes and the resolve of each Dantes combine with one another to create 2 completely new Edmond Danteses. This technicality is, in my opinion, completely unnecessary to the plot, existing solely to screw with our heads. I've talked this over with friends on my Discord, and none of us can clarify what's so significant about regret and resolve in particular. Regret for what? Resolve for what? It's never explained adequately, so your theory is as good as any. In either case, to differentiate between the two Danteses, I'll call one of them Shadow Dantes, while the other is Masked Dantes. In order to create and maintain the singularity, Shadow Dantes uses the majority of his magical energy, entrusting his masked form to serve as ringleader over what happens inside. In the end, they manifest Pseudo Tokyo, a cityscape built from Ritsuka's memories before coming to Chaldea, the life they could have lived before responding to Chaldea's recruitment posters. I suppose it's not actually Ritsuka's life, but a pretend version where all the key players are instead servants we've met throughout the game. Ritsuka's mom is played by Da Vinci, with her younger self acting as Ritsuka's adorable little sister. Like your typical dating sim, across the way is your childhood friend and crush, Mashu, except everyone calls her Kyrie in the dream. Your classmates are Mandricardo and Osaka Behime, going by Ricardo and Himiko respectively. Everyone at school is intimidated by Oruta, or Jeanne Alter is a delinquent schoolgirl. Two of your teachers are Miss Fuka, played by Boudica, and Mr. Salieri, played by Antonio Salieri. Most of them seem to be European servants, such as Amadeus Mozart, who plays Amatsuka-senpai, a jovial upperclassman who runs around playing the ukulele. The student council president is Marie Antoinette, and the school's vice president later appears as Cagliostro himself. For all intents and purposes, these are completely new people with their own histories and memories. They exist so that Ritsuka can easily accept this world as reality. That immersion is key to Dantes' ultimate plan, which is tempting Ritsuka to the side of an Avenger. The trials alone won't actually push Ritsuka that far. That's why the masked Dantes plans to straight up murder some people Ritsuka loves. This becomes the most dramatic part of the story. The trauma from this will send us spiraling down a dark, reckless path as we seek out the culprit who murdered them. The 7 trials merely add to the chaos, pushing an unstable master to their limit. Again, the goal isn't to make Ritsuka into an Avenger, to have them abandon everything in pursuit of revenge. Rather, Dantes hopes Ritsuka will take this trauma to heart and overcome it. All the servants in this dream are either Avengers themselves, or heroic spirits who could become Avengers in the right situation. Fighting back proves tricky, as, like I said before, everything in this dream world is being maintained by Dantes himself. Ritsuka has a hard time with simple summons, where servants manifest temporarily for combat. In order to establish a stronger summons, we have to use one of our precious command spells. If we were awake in the storm border, we could simply recharge them, but for the duration of this dream we only get 3, at least for a good long while. In addition, the Avenger servants in the dream can transform into their heroic spirit counterparts, almost like superheroes in a tokusatsu show. Jeanne, Salieri, and Kage-kyo wind up being our most trusted allies. At first, when Novum Chaldea detects this singularity, they sound the alarm, unaware that Edmond Dantes is causing all of this deliberately. Just before Ritsuka passes out, falling into that REM sleep state like so many times in the past, the Stormborder's heroic spirit summoning system activates on its own. The human order is being a huge dick to us by blocking the path to Antarctica, but in this one instance, it seems to be throwing us a bone, summoning us a single servant from Chaldea directly. It is Hassan of the Shining Star, another of the famed Hassan-i Saba. We don't know his exact number in the list, but he's the Hassan who directly predates Serenity. While Serenity is cute and pretty, fans joke that Shining Star is a bit of a twink. With all due respect, he served as a competent leader of the sect before Serenity later took over. What sets him apart from the others is his noble phantasm, or Zabania, thoughtless framework. It is a technique he developed that pushes his magic circuits into overdrive, resulting in a huge burst of agility. His high speed in this state leaves behind a trail of light as he unleashes countless attacks within the blink of an eye. This speed comes at a cost, however. Should he use his Zabania for more than 10 seconds at a time, he will burn out and die like the very stars he emulates. When Hassan of the Shining Star arrives on the storm border, he claims to have already fought for us before in Tokyo, even though this is our first time meeting him. This plot point doesn't really go anywhere, but it seems he's been summoned with all the memories he's about to gain during the dream. After all, it is possible to summon a heroic spirit from the future, like Emiya. Regardless, he's put on edge when Dantes comes out, and when it seems the two are going to fight, Ritsuka intervenes, only to collapse in slumber. Despite how he was summoned, Hassan infiltrates Ritsuka's dream as a transfer student. He's kind of a stubborn brat, though, refusing to form a servant contract with us until we prove we're worthy of protecting mankind. If Ritsuka's not qualified, who the hell is? The last thing I want to mention before going into the synopsis is how Cagliostro factors into all this. recall that Ritsuka is suffering from the despair brought about from their journey thus far. Cagliostro knows this, making his next attack one on our fragile mental state. In other words, he enters Ritsuka's dream, hoping to accelerate the growth of our despair, forcing those stone slabs to grow faster than Dantes can incinerate them. In addition to the pillars, Ritsuka's despair begins unleashing fearsome flame familiars that attack everyone indiscriminately. Within the dream, Cagliostro thinks he's being stealthy, sneaking in is one of the 7 trials. He doesn't realize Dantes is luring him in on purpose for an ultimate showdown. To sum all this up, Novum Chaldea is stuck dealing with random singularities until the human order lets us into Antarctica. Our ultimate target, the alien world of Chaldeus, still has a couple of apostles opposing our advance. One of those apostles, Count Cagliostro, keeps setting up obstacles for us. Meanwhile, Edmond Dantes is reflecting on Ritsuka's use of Avenger servants. He's legit worried we'll turn into an Avenger, wanting to claim vengeance upon the alien world for bleaching Earth. Rather than, I don't know, talk it out through therapy, he comes up with a much more convoluted scheme to absolve his worries. He thinks we'll be better off casting revenge away, and devises a plan to have us truly confront the flames of vengeance. Specifically, he creates the Pseudo Tokyo singularity within Ritsuka's mind, through which Ritsuka must feel what it's like to lust for revenge, and then overcome that hatred. All at the same time, Ritsuka's been accumulating mental trauma from dealing with the Lost Belts, and Count Cagliostro wants to exploit that as a weakness. Thus, Dantes arranges for his singularity to serve as a trap for Cagliostro, trying to solve Ritsuka's Avenger and Apostle problems all at once. Let's take a look at how that all plays out. Ritsuka gains consciousness inside the dream. Encountering Pseudo Tokyo is both new and nostalgic. They can't tell if this is truly the home they knew before Chaldea, yet it feels familiar. We're essentially in a bit of a daze between remembering Chaldea while also accepting our surroundings as normal. Speaking of normal, it's pretty much standard for Ritsuka to get attacked soon after arriving in a singularity. It's those damn flame familiars I mentioned earlier. Technically, Ritsuka's been doing this whole simple summons thing throughout all of Fate Grand Order, but this is actually the first time it's described in such casual detail. For unknown reasons, they feel more exhausted from the process than usual. Every now and again, the Shadow Dantes will pop up from Ritsuka's shadow, either to just stand there in silence, or to instruct us on how to proceed with the trials. His ability to speak dwindles the longer the singularity goes on. Ritsuka's kinda entering their own life here en media res. This is apparent when Jean Alter, or rather the high schooler Oruta, finds us in an alleyway and tells us it's dangerous. We're downtown right now, and meet up with Ricardo and Himiko on the way home. They're confused whenever Ritsuka first calls them by their heroic spirit names, and jokingly accept that we're suffering from some light amnesia. In real life, if you find someone losing their memories, it's probably best to take them to a hospital. Shit's not normal. Anyway, their full names are Ricardo Ando and Himiko Osakabe. Real clever. Since we don't even know where we live, they show us the way, noting that our childhood friend Kyrie is waiting for us back home. As neighbors, Kyrie often comes over to cook dinner with our family, and today is curry day. Ritsuka's sister greets them at the door. Seeing both little and adult Da Vinci again reminds Ritsuka of when Kyrie killed her. In a suspicious revelation, we notice a door by the entryway, but Lil Sis tells us it leads to our father's study, and that going in is forbidden. What is this, hello neighbor? Without even a moment's question, we just assume that's totally normal and never consider the mysterious door again. Instead, we settle into our home and enjoy a pleasant meal with the family, minus the absentee father. In the morning, we have some breakfast before walking to school. Lil Sis joins us part way before branching off to her elementary school. In tropic fashion, we arrive at the high school's gate just before the bell, so our teacher, Mr. Salieri, scolds us. This is also our first encounter with Amatsuka-senpai. Since Kyrie's our junior, her classroom is on a higher floor than ours. Everyone else heads to the second floor, where we meet our teacher Fuka. Again, this is supposed to be an everyday occurrence, yet Ritsuka can't help acknowledge this is all new. Anyway, Fuka introduces the class to a new transfer student who happens to be Hassan of the Shining Star. We get roped into showing him around the building after class. At an opportune moment, Hassan waits until he's alone with us to talk about what's really going on, how this singularity isn't the pleasant paradise it seems. Even though he's not willing to form a proper contract with us, he still helps out in combat when more of those flames attack. He's a stubborn ally, but an ally nonetheless. On the way home, the sound of a trumpet plays out across the city, indicating it's time for the first trial. Without any context, Pseudo Dantes tells us to fight if you want to proceed. Tokyo Station turns into a bounded field of sorts, where almost everyone has disappeared. This is strange given it should be rush hour. In the isolated venue, Theodoric Alter manifests as our first opponent. I don't believe I've covered her in this series, so let's do that, since her appearance here is kinda deceitful. Essentially, Theodoric is a character from the epic poem Fairy Queen. She was a fairy knight and friend of King Arthur during his youth. Her story tells of adventures, damsels in distress, and fierce battles. Eventually, Theodoric would find and marry her soulmate, Artegal. Eventually, however, Artegal was stolen from her by a diabolical traitor. According to legend, Theodoric never let her hatred of this consume her. Instead, she raised the child she had with Artegal. Technically speaking, Theodoric started off as a brave human with a magical spear called Bladud. It was only after serving under the fairy queen Gloriana that she was turned into a fairy knight. The Theodoric we encounter in Haydée is not the original knight, but rather her daughter who inherits the name. In this singularity, however, the one calling herself Theodoric Alter is the original Theodoric, mother of the one we know. Given the Alter title, she appears in a more wrathful state, as though she were consumed by vengeance for losing her beloved. I'm sure these are feelings she always had, but never let corrupt her. Thus, her theme is an avenger weeping for stolen love, casting aside her virtues to take revenge. This Theodoric's armor is far too strong for any of Ritsuka's servants. This forces us to fall back, where we discover Kyrie at the station and immediately hide her in a back alley. Remember, this isn't actually Mashu, but a stand-in using her appearance. She has no clue about magecraft and servants, so she's obviously confused and surprised to learn that Ritsuka can fight. Beyond her, there are two other civilians still caught inside Theodoric's domain. They happen to be Oruta and Salieri, who came here following a troop of armored soldiers. Well, I say that, but Oruta was actually here trying to buy cute stuff. How adorable. From intuition, Salieri believes that Ritsuka, his student, is indeed capable of fighting these minions. As such, he lets us hold off the army of Death Knights so the others can escape. During the trials, each enemy servant sparks a war of attrition, flooding the battlefield with minions. We usually have to wade through waves of these damn things before confronting the actual cause. Fortunately, we're not stuck doing this all on our own. Pseudo Dantes emerges long enough to grant Oruta and Mr. Salieri the chance to transform into their servant forms. It's probably better to say their spirit origins are taking possession of their counterpart bodies. Thanks to Ritsuka's trouble performing simple summons, Jalter and Salieri wind up being far more reliable. Even with their help, however, it's not enough to pierce through Theodoric's armor. Instead, they all escape to the roof of a skyscraper nearby. Having never experienced servants before, Kyrie panics as Jalter and Salieri bring her along with their jump hundreds of meters into the air. For as much as we want to educate her on the situation, we feel keeping her in the dark is for her own good. Getting involved is just too dangerous. It's not long before Theodoric catches up with us. Even though she's in her bulky armor, she can take flight and dive bomb us from the air. We clearly need some reinforcements, so Ritsuka reaches out to Pseudo Dantes with a command spell. This lets us literally drag a new servant from his shadow. In this case, we see the twin blades of Azamaru that belong to Taira no Kagekiyo. Yet another Avenger has come to our aid. Since both Kagekiyo and Jalter can conjure flames, they use fire to push Theodoric off the roof. This in itself doesn't harm her, but it nonetheless reveals her weakness. Theodoric's armor comes from a blessing of the earth. Her defense is considerably weaker when in the air. Knowing this, Kagekiyo launches Britomart into the air, while she and Jalter unleash their noble phantasms. The Fairy Knight is defeated, returning Tokyo Station to normal. Our servants all flee using Kagekiyo's mist to hide themselves from the public. Later on at school, Ritsuka, Jalter, and Salieri discuss how they were able to summon Kagekiyo. This wasn't your typical summoning, after all. Salieri thinks this is an extension of Dantes' noble phantasm, specifically the one that lets him escape from any prison, whether that be space or time. In other words, we used Shadow Dantes as a gateway to yank out another servant. The similarities between these challenges and the Prison Tower event lead us to think Dantes himself may have created the singularity. The shadowy bastard won't tell us either which way. When not fighting, Oruta and Mr. Salieri return to their non-servant forms in order to conserve mana, as well as not interfere with the bodies they're borrowing. Oruta lives at home with her parents, so she's limited in what she can do at night. Salieri, on the other hand, lives alone, allowing him to essentially stalk Ritsuka at night, for protection, of course. We initially think that Kagekiyo vanishes after the fight, but nope, she actually transfers into Ritsuka's school under the name Ushiwaka. Being a total warmonger, she agrees to help us out, but only after we engage her in a duel. She confesses how Shadow Dantes used part of his spirit origin to allow her to possess Ushiwaka and remain on for future battles. In order to communicate in secret while in public, Ritsuka and their servants use a form of telepathy. That way, they can maintain a low profile between trials, which we're pretty much just stuck waiting for. Despite our secrecy, Kyrie has already observed us fighting firsthand. While she worries about Ritsuka, she's willing to trust them and not pry any further, even though she really wants to. Between trials, the flame creatures provide us new opponents by corrupting or provoking specific non-Avengers into becoming Avengers. The first case of this is with Boudica, aka the teacher Fuka. Honestly, it's surprising Boudica wasn't an Avenger from the start, given her hatred for Nero Claudius and the Roman army that slaughtered her family and people. It doesn't take much to convince her to go full Avenger, luring us into another battle. Kagekiyo wants to slay her, but we insist on keeping Fuka alive. Fortunately, knocking Fuka down a peg allows her to return to normal. Apparently, she had the potential to become one of the 7 trials, but couldn't fully mature as an Avenger in time. This indicates the roster of opponents isn't set in stone. Just when we're feeling we can handle this bizarre singularity, horror strikes. After parting ways with Jalter, Ritsuka returns home, only to find their mom's bleeding corpse in the hallway. Yet again, Da Vinci has been killed. Unfortunately, it's not just her adult form. Further into the living room, we discover our sister's deceased body as well. Wanting to call an ambulance, Ritsuka looks for the home's phone, only to find Kyrie had been murdered while trying to place a call. Who the hell did this? Why? This, more than anything else, pushes Ritsuka closer toward hatred and vengeance. Even though we're aware this dream world is fabricated, we're far too immersed in it to not let this traumatize us. The killer remains at large, while Jalter and Salieri show up with the police. Outside the crime scene, Jalter wonders how the hell Salieri could have let this happen, given he was supposed to be guarding the place. Apparently, though, Salieri's been carefully monitoring mana activity within 50 meters of the building, and not once did he detect any intruders. Understandably, Jalter is highly protective of Ritsuka, both physically and emotionally. She definitely has to pull double duty, as a trumpet signals the second trial against Theodoric Alter and Shibuya. There's nobody to confirm or deny it, but Ritsuka wants to know if these trials have anything to do with the murder. Under the possibility that Theodoric is the killer, Ritsuka is eager to take her down quickly. Of course, it's never that easy. Theodoric Alter floats around the 42nd floor of the Shinjuku Sumimoto building, sending hordes of undead minions to do her bidding, along with the occasional Sphinx. Right off the bat, there's something fishy about how Theodoric Alter presents herself. She claims to be a pure Avenger, which doesn't match the version of her we met in Lost Belt 7. The Nitocris Alter we know is, ironically, a vengeless Avenger. This is because Nitocris herself completed her vengeance in life. She drowned the corrupt officials who had her brothers killed, only to then take her own life. Nitocris Alter, then, is supposed to be a contradiction, whereas the one right here claims to be filled with vengeance. At one point, the battle takes a turn for the worst, prompting Jalter and Salieri to flee. Ritsuka, however, is too enraged to fall back, insisting on avenging their family. Of course, there's only so much a human master can accomplish on their own. Thus, Hassan intervenes to rescue Ritsuka, forcefully pulling us away before inquiring if our journey's purpose is to slaughter enemies. He helps us calm down enough for a second assault. So we opt to summon another servant through Shadow Dantes. Expending a second command spell, Ritsuka sees the image of Anubis and draws out Chaldeia's Nitocris Alter, proving that our enemy is a fake. With her help, we once again confront the fake face to face. This is where things get a bit confusing. While staring at Ritsuka's determined, vengeful eyes, the fake Nitocris Alter catches a glimpse of the black barrel replica, specifically the image of Mashu firing it off with her bunker bolt. This freaks Nito out, like she can feel the black barrel's threat through Ritsuka's soul. I don't know why the hell this is. Mashu's not even here, and the one with the closest connection to the black barrel is Habitrot. As far as I'm aware, this appears to be a one-off thing I can't explain. More importantly, taking advantage of our enemy's terror, Chaldeia's Nitocris Alter attacks with her own noble phantasm, while also taxing more of Shadow Dantes to temporarily call upon the Dioscuri twins, one of which happens to be an Avenger. All in all, these reinforcements save the day, destroying the fake Nitocris Alter and completing the trial. It seems Ritsuka feels a sick sense of satisfaction from vanquishing this particular foe, which is silly, given she wasn't the killer at all. That night, Ritsuka sleeps, even though they're technically already asleep. Through this dreamception, we see visions of Edmond Dantes' past. During the year 1838, he and his servants discuss whether Nitocris or Boudica were angrier than the other. One of Dantes' stewards, Bertuccio, also mentions Britomart. This reveals that the trial candidates are all people Dantes was aware of in life or encountered directly. Unlike Kagekiyo, who was able to return after being summoned, both Nitocris Alter and Dioscuri disappear. I guess the Shadow is really pushing his luck now. We barely scraped out a victory this time, but Oruta scolds us for recklessly approaching our foe. No matter how angry, we shouldn't recklessly put ourselves in danger like that. Even though we have no appetite, Hassan urges us to eat lunch at school. In the evening, Amatsuka-senpai tries to cheer us up, having no idea that Kyrie is dead. Still grieving her loss, Ritsuka rushes home and stares directly into the mirror. Our reflection taunts us with a reminder that the killer is still out there. Do we want to kill whoever's responsible? In the wake of our family's murder, we're surprised to find Skahak at our front door. More specifically, this is supposed to be our aunt, who's here to move in as our new guardian. She's nowhere near as domestic as her sister, but she's enthusiastic about caring for us. It's nice, though it also makes Ritsuka afraid her aunt will get murdered like the others. Oddly enough, Oruta dreams when going to sleep in this singularity. Normally, a servant only dreams when sharing their memories with a master. She dreams of an earlier conversation Jalter had with Marie Antoinette. In it, Marie mentions that when she first met Cagliostro, he was like a lifeless hollow. At the school's gate, we find Student Council President Marie, along with her uncle, the Vice Principal, who is literally just Cagliostro appearing before us for the first time. He seems concerned about our health, and so far, we have no reason to doubt him. When addressing Marie, Salieri accidentally calls her Madam, to which she states she's not married yet. Amatsuka-senpai's sad that Marie won't consider him, her childhood friend, as a suitable marriage partner. Instead, she takes this moment to ask Ritsuka out on a date, startling Himiko and Oruta. Of course, Himiko's just a degenerate shipper who gets excited about other people's love lives. Oruta, well, she's being all tsundere, hiding her obvious crush on us. Said date occurs the following day. We meet Marie at a mall in Odaiba, except our servants are all keeping watch from afar, gabbing in our ear via telepathy. They're nosy, but then again, we don't know when anyone else will turn Avenger like Fuka did. Understandably, Ritsuka isn't the most outgoing partner, still concerned with her family's death. To rub salt into the wound, Marie takes us to see a movie where the protagonist covets revenge. She herself has such desires, given how conspiratorial politics led to her and her loved ones being executed. Having a hard time enduring all this, Ritsuka bites their lip, suppressing their inner turmoil. Marie then comments how she hates people like that, revealing her eyes to have the same golden color as many altar servants. The scene shifts back to school, where Salieri is getting some work done. Cagliostro shows up, and their discussion reveals both he and Marie are servants. Like a manipulative prick, Cagliostro reminds Salieri of his own vengeful hatred, prepping him to be our next opponent. At the end of our date, Aunt Skahak finds us downtown and offers to treat us if we want to stay out longer. Being a total bitch, Marie asks if Skahak is our new family, pissing Ritsuka off. Suspiciously, she runs away, but we lose sight of her in an alleyway. There, we get attacked by a new kind of monster, something that looks like an intestine shaped like a snake. Lately, Hassan has stayed behind at our home to watch after our aunt, but given the circumstances, he's come to rescue us instead while Kagekyo takes over. Yet again, Ritsuka gets careless in battle, not keeping an adequate distance from the enemy. This causes our hand to get spattered in monster blood. Despite being scolded for this, we remain stubborn. Hassan tries to explain how there's a difference between an assassin like him, who's pledged himself to a great cause, and the vengeful slaughter Avengers seek. He warns us not to go down that path. After an hour with no contact, Jalter starts to worry about Salieri's absence. Upon linking to him telepathically, we get an invitation to a nearby park. This time, Kagekyo escorts us there, which is great since Salieri's turned into an enemy. After some fighting, the dude escapes, leaving Jalter to hunt him down all night. Ignoring the urge to pursue, Ritsuka agrees to reconvene with her in the morning. To our surprise, Salieri arrives at school and does his job as teacher. His hostility seems to be gone, but that's only because he's holding back the urge to kill. He tries to have the school clear out early, predicting an inevitable fight. What he doesn't expect is to wind up face to face with Amatsuka. Don't forget, Salieri as a servant is heavily influenced by the rumors and stories that he enviously hated and plotted against Mozart. Amatsuka may be a different person, but he's similar enough to accidentally drag out Salieri's murderous rage. Bizarrely, Amatsuka doesn't seem too bothered. He inquires whether Salieri truly wants to kill of his own volition, or if he's just being exploited. Regardless, Kagekyo arrives to break things up. Seeing Salieri all wound up makes Ritsuka succumb to their own hatred. Thankfully, Amatsuka's such a charming guy that he knows just how to calm us down. First, he apologizes for not knowing about Kyrie. Whether she's dead or alive, Amatsuka lets us know that she'll always be in our heart. This gets Ritsuka thinking about the past, specifically when they stood with Mashu just outside Chaldea's original base. The sky was so blue and serene. This reminds us what we're fighting for, quelling the flames of vengeance in our soul. Alongside this newfound peace comes a blue command spell. That's good, since we were running low. Kagekyo fights until Salieri comes to his senses. On our side again, he admits that Marie, of all people, had twisted his spirit origin, forcing him to rampage like Fuka. Both Marie and Cagliostro are still on campus when a trumpet signals our next trial. To no one's surprise, it's Marie, or rather, Marie Antoinette Alter. Technically speaking, we encountered her when she appeared in the Fate Requiem event. Much like Jeanne d'Arc, Marie was a righteous, loving girl who never held a grudge against those who wronged her. This Alter version is a side of herself that discards her ideals to pursue vengeance. Her appearance is that of her adult self, dressed in the clothing she wore to her own execution. Oddly, she introduces herself as the fourth trial, not the third. This is because we'll be facing the third and fourth trials at the same time. Those weird snake creatures from before are her minions, the entrails of wrath. Gross. Like the previous trials, she bombards us with these monsters and an army of Death Knights. It seems her real body is waiting for us in the school gymnasium. Technically, the person we're talking to right now is just one of Cagliostro's illusions, which is evident when Kagekyo chops her head off. Earlier, Shadow Dantes would actually warp us to our venue, but now the guy's too weak to even speak to us, let alone help out. Thus, we make our way out the window and around the building. Trying to blend in, Cagliostro introduces himself as Cagliostro Alter, the third trial servant. Both he and Marie try to tempt Ritsuka to give in to vengeance, but we've already overcome that hurdle. Cagliostro seals both Jalter and Kagekyo in illusionary flames. Hassan could help out, but he's watching after Skahak. This leaves Ritsuka and a weakened Salieri to fight long enough to free Jalter. She and Salieri once again decapitate Marie, only to discover it was just another snake organ in disguise. Our one opening was wasted on a petty trick, with Cagliostro reigniting his flames. All seems lost when the actual Marie Alter goes in for the kill. Before she can, however, she is run through from behind by her own partner. Cagliostro declares he's been meaning to betray her all along. He's not an Avenger, but rather a pretender servant. Suddenly trying to appeal to us, he says he's only been pretending to be an apostle of the alien world and is actually fighting for the human order. He finishes off Marie Alter and releases us from his flames. Even so, Ritsuka asks whether or not he killed Kyrie and the others. That's when the real culprit makes his appearance. The masked Edmond Dantes, in charge of arranging this singularity, confesses to the crime while making his first appearance. Our servants try to fight him, but he repels them with a sword, something Shadow Dantes doesn't use. Rather than elaborate on the murders, masked Dantes congratulates us on clearing 2 trials at once, leaving only 3 more to complete. He, of course, is the final trial, but he's gonna make us fight them in order. We're forced to comply when he vanishes in spirit form. As for Cagliostro, he might swear to be our ally, but it's hard to trust someone known for betraying his former allies. Who's to say he won't betray us, too? Being too kind for their own good, Ritsuka allows him to help out while under supervision. Kagekyo will chop him to pieces if he tries anything funny. Presumably, the third trial was supposed to feature someone else, but Cagliostro infiltrated the system, hoping to sabotage it from within. Now that we've discovered a second Dantes, Ritsuka demands the Shadow explain what the hell's going on. He still can't speak, but Shadow Dantes does emerge to nod or shake his head yes and no. Too bad it's not very helpful. When asked whether the masked Dantes is a remnant from the prison tower, he motions both yes and no. Anyway, the event's pace starts to pick up. The school doesn't go back to normal, meaning the next trial is coming right up. In fact, 2 trumpets sound, preparing us for 2 more simultaneous trials. This is because both Theodoric Alter and the Beast of Gévaudan count as separate opponents, even though one's riding on top of the other. Thankfully, I already explained who they are during Dantes' backstory. They manifest at Aomi Station in Odaiba, where there's a giant Ferris wheel attraction. The fight is very long and drawn out, thanks to Theodoric representing the Wild Hunt. His minions are derivative of the hunt in storms, such as massive thunderbirds and wolves. Theodoric himself is protected by an invisible storm that can directly attack the minds of living beings. Even though this is especially dangerous for Ritsuka, they ignore being warned, instead trusting in their mystic code to protect them. Jalter pleads for us to retreat, even as blood spouts from our nose. Thanks to some more thunderbirds, we have no choice but to regroup. Cagliostro suggests using his anti-city noble phantasm to wipe out all the minions. This would also destroy the city itself, so Ritsuka denies his proposal. So that her master won't have to sacrifice anything, Jalter devises a plan that requires everyone else to secure a path to Theodoric. Said plan is to use Jalter's own mana as the catalyst to drag out reinforcements from Shadow Dantes. Since Dantes himself can't provide enough energy, Jalter puts herself at risk to make up the difference. The servants emerging from her efforts are Hessian Lobo and Gorgon, anti-heroes considered beasts like their opponent. Gorgon's mana weakens the storm around Theodoric, and then petrifies him long enough for Jalter and Lobo to land a fatal strike. Given the circumstances, neither Gorgon nor Lobo can stick around after the fight. Hypocritically, Ritsuka tells Jalter not to put herself at risk like that again. Fortunately, she shouldn't have to, as we still have one more command spell to use against the masked Dantes. Until he shows up, though, it's back to our daily life at school. Hassan sticks around Ritsuka's house as a bodyguard, and finally realizes that our dad hasn't shown up, even after his wife and daughter were murdered. Is he really still up in his study, beyond that forbidden door? Sure enough, the masked Dantes then comes out through that door, exposing the full nature of his crime. Turns out, we're not all just idiots for ignoring how suspicious that door was. It was being protected by a strong suggestion spell, making it hard for us not to just accept it as normal. After all, to an extent, this entire singularity is invoking suggestion to make Ritsuka think this is their actual life. No wonder Salieri never detected anyone entering the house. The culprit was inside the entire time. Masked Dantes suddenly stepped out of his study with a massive sword and massacred his wife, daughter, and Kyrie, all for the sole purpose of provoking Ritsuka. At this point, rather than fight us, Dantes seeks out all our Avenger servants individually, explaining why he's been doing this. He convinces them that Ritsuka no longer has a need for Avengers, as they only serve to corrupt us down a dark path. Unlike the alter egos, whom we simply needed to understand better, Dantes is convinced Ritsuka will have to part with all Avengers for the human order to accept them. Even if that weren't the case, he feels the Avengers will only cause Ritsuka harm. Off-screen, masked Dantes tells each of the Avengers his motive, encouraging them to part ways with their master. Salieri and Kagekiyo both drop us a frustrating letter explaining they can't help us anymore. Jalter, on the other hand, decides to share one last day with Ritsuka. Adorably, she insists we go on a date just like the one we had with Marie. She reflects on our past together, how we started off as enemies, and even how we danced together in Shinjuku. Wanting to relive that moment, she and Ritsuka dance one more time. They've gotten better since last time. Unfortunately, Jalter comments that even beautiful moments like this must come to an end. She too will be bowing out of the fight, unable to properly articulate her reasoning. Jalter departs just as the final trumpet sounds. Our only remaining allies happen to be Hassan, Cagliostro, and the half-dead Shadow Dantes. At the very least, we know where to go. Hassan clues us in on the secret of Dantes' study. Beyond his surprisingly spacious office, which wouldn't actually fit in a house that size, we find a spiral staircase down to the abyss of Ritsuka's mind. Going down that path, Ritsuka fights against more flame minions, and realizes they can no longer summon Avenger-class servants. To make matters worse, Cagliostro finally reveals himself as our enemy, which we really should have expected. He stabs us through the chest with his sword, taking back how he initially claimed to be a servant of humanity. Rather, he brags about infiltrating the singularity and screwing with it. Apparently, Theodoric Alter and his mount weren't supposed to be trials at all, but Cagliostro incorporated them in addition to making himself a trial. Hassan does his best to keep Ritsuka alive, but can only do so much while also fighting off the Count. Needing assistance, Ritsuka once again pulls from Shadow Dantes a new servant, or rather, a familiar one. Wanting some revenge herself, Marie Antoinette Alter answers the call and uses her noble phantasm, Ve Victus, to slice Cagliostro's head off for once. Too bad he's a lot like the cockroach Ashia Dolman, and reattaches his head without much effort. Hilariously though, just as he brags about being invincible, Hassan's noble phantasm kills his ass. As he vanishes, Cagliostro warns that his blade was coated with a curse that will claim our life. Luckily, Hassan admits he already treated Ritsuka by borrowing a noble phantasm that nullifies curses. Ironically, that noble phantasm is a Tonda e Espire, which he obtained from masked Dantes. Turns out, our final trial knew Cagliostro would likely try some shit, and made sure Hassan was ready. Marie Alter starts to disappear, admitting she was only able to show up because Shadow Dantes barely kept her alive earlier. Adding to our woes, Hassan abused his noble phantasm to defeat Cagliostro, and the rebound is causing him to vanish too. This essentially leaves Ritsuka to face the final trial alone, as Shadow Dantes finally runs out of energy and crumbles to ash. It appears the masked Dantes isn't faring all that much better. Behind his mask reveals a face that is falling apart. After all this deceit, he finally explains to us why he created this Pseudo Tokyo. He wanted to teach Ritsuka about the tremendous power that comes with a lust for revenge, acknowledging there's a part of our soul that's compatible with Avengers. Technically, Ritsuka could become the world's greatest Avenger, as we'd be avenging the entire bleached Earth. As Sherlock once said, it's basically one colossal murder mystery. However, Dantes is delighted to see that Ritsuka's resolve hasn't faltered in light of all of this. We stand to fight, not to kill, not for revenge, but to reach that big blue sky we saw with Mashu at Haydée. All that's left to do is battle it out once and for all. Upon defeating Dantes, we find ourselves being ray-shifted out of the singularity, waking up from the dream. Understandably, Ritsuka is overjoyed at seeing Mashu alive and well on the storm border. Everyone's worried about our health, while we're concerned about theirs. Sure enough, Avenger servants no longer wander the premises. That night, we go to bed early, having an otherwise normal dream of Dantes' legend. Specifically, it reminds us how Edmond Dantes' story continues past his vengeance. He did eventually find peace through the love of his life. Haydée, the woman Dantes married, is a critical part of his legend. As such, there's actually a part of her within Dantes' spirit origin. Ritsuka is awakened from their slumber to witness Haydée manifest for a time. She asks what we truly want out of this situation, and we respond how we want to see our Avengers again. They never even got a proper goodbye. Technically, the singularity within Ritsuka's mind still lingers. Dantes and the others are fighting the malignant data brought about by Cagliostro, who's latching on to Ritsuka's growing despair. Normally, these dreams are the ones to drag us in, but what if there's a way we can go there deliberately? Fortunately, there are a handful of Chaldean servants who are experts in this field. Specifically, we've got Ashia Dolman, who created the whole Shimosa singularity, and Abigail Williams, whose connection to Soot Typhon makes her a gatekeeper between dimensions, such as the world of dreams in the Cthulhu mythos. I actually skipped this earlier, but before creating his Pseudo Tokyo, Edmond Dantes actually reached out to these servants, hoping to entrust them with protecting Ritsuka's mind in his absence. Well, he didn't suspect they would send Ritsuka back to him for the Singularity's final battle. A handful of other servants helped make this possible too, including Kama, Paracelsus, Geronimo, Amakusa Shiro, and Merlin. Meanwhile, the Avenger servants are being overwhelmed by flame familiars. Dantes refers to the depths of Ritsuka's mind as the waste hole, where malignant data gathers. To continue fighting, he combines with what's left of Shadow Dantes, forming into a single servant. At the very bottom of the staircase, we see Ritsuka's vestiges of despair. Cagliostro's feeding off these vestiges, while accelerating their growth beyond what Dantes can handle on his own. Apparently, the Cagliostro Hassan defeated was a duplicate, and this is his core spirit origin. Without Ritsuka actually present, none of the Avengers can invoke their noble phantasms. This, combined with Cagliostro's ridiculous regeneration, makes this an impossible fight. The cheaters essentially tapping into our magic circuits. Unwilling to tolerate this bullshit, Ritsuka returns to the Singularity, pissed at Dantes, while acknowledging they've got a bigger threat to deal with first. Returning to the Storm Border gave us the chance to regenerate our command spells, and we return with renewed vigor. Overall, this becomes a boss incorporating all the Avengers one last time. Ritsuka's riding on top of Lobo, with little cameos to other servants such as Angramanyu. Masked Dantes even drags out his other self from his own shadow, allowing both of them the chance to maniacally laugh together. Cagliostro can't survive being bombarded by all of their noble phantasms consecutively. Dantes' flames burn away all the evil, leaving the rest of Ritsuka's mind intact. Jalter, however, is the one to finally incinerate Cagliostro for good. While this is a happy reunion for the Avengers, they still plan to quit being Chaldean servants. As a consolation prize of sorts, they will leave their hollowed shadows for us to summon in combat, but they will never be properly summoned again. Jalter was hoping we would accept this, and struggles giving a proper goodbye. Jeez, get a room, you two. To satisfy the human order, and to save their beloved master, the Avengers take Ritsuka's vengeful flames and go their separate ways. They all say their goodbyes throughout the storm border as well. The more touching of these scenes is when Jalter says goodbye to regular Jeanne, entrusting her with Chaldea's victory. As a result of their departure, the Foundation of Humanity board increases to a C rating. While I'm not thrilled with this outcome, it seems we are one step closer to our goal. A couple days after the ordeal call, we got an appendix epilogue of sorts. In it, Kichi Hogan interrogates Ashiadoman, asking if Cagliostro was merely one of his shikigami. To his credit, Doman admits he played a critical part in saving the day. He used his spells to track down Cagliostro within Ritsuka's mind and forge a path for Ritsuka to arrive at the waste hole. Man, I can't say I like saying that name. Anyway, we are almost done, but there's one remaining piece to cover. Even though Cagliostro is dead, we've still got to fight the remaining 3 Olga elements he created. Shortly after Ordeal Call II, we confront Aqua Marie, who sneaks on the storm border without triggering Trismegistus. After toying around with us for a bit, she drags us into a massive thunderstorm where the battle takes place. She's stronger than Flare Marie, but helps even the stakes with various handicaps. Essentially, if you do well in the fights leading up to her, she hands out presidential badges, which can be used to limit her power. She's taking this easy because she doesn't want to destroy the storm border. She'd much rather claim it for herself. After losing, though, Aqua Marie admits she probably shouldn't have gone easy on us. Flare Marie couldn't talk with us, but since Aqua Marie is more developed and sociable, Da Vinci takes this chance to confirm a lot of her suspicions about the alien world. Since you, Olga Marie, sought to govern mankind, and she was merely a tool for the alien world, that would mean the alien world itself must be a system that controls Chaldeus. Olga Marie Animosphere, Marisbury's own daughter, was raised to be a part of Chaldeus. Whatever this whole alien world winds up being for, our former director was intended to be part of it from the beginning. Before vanishing, Aqua Marie declares that she and her other elementals are no longer merely parts of the original you, Olga. They are now full-on copies of her that we shouldn't underestimate. Each of them is based off Olga's emotions, specifically her joy, anger, grief, and pleasure. Flare was grief, and Aqua is pleasure. Of the remaining emotions, Aqua warns us to stay away from joy, as even the other elements are afraid of her. Regardless, each element has different knowledge, so by confronting them all, we should learn a lot more about Chaldeus. If we survive, that is. Admittedly, these are all breadcrumbs leading to the ultimate showdown at Chaldeus, but it's what we get for now until the remaining ordeal calls. I'm sure many of you know how that pans out through the Japanese server, but I'll continue giving the English version its deserved coverage. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive, and until next time, celebrate your fandom. I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters: Video Gamer 75, Dante Pendragon, Stephen Elak, Mystic Samurai 1983, Otaku Mom, Free Brick, Jugemu Unko, Lunarworks, Link Pendrago, James Hewitt, Uncanny EXP, Crow Kalem, Sal Soto, Major, Matal Mataru, Winter's Edge, Sneer Cachette, Thanathiel, Foxbox, Alzinga Fagan, Draco Chaotic, Caitlin P, Sith Lord 906, Vladimirovna, The Taz 96, Kengo X 77, Alistair Bernadotte, and Liamon 3. Thank you all so much.